When I was 4 years old, my family moved from San Francisco to Boston's Italian North End. My mom and dad were getting a divorce, and my older sisters were spinning out. My whole family was in chaos. My mother was checked out. And I was a little toddler. I was all alone. We were moving into temporary housing until the building we eventually would move into was renovated. And all the tenants would move with us, so there were very few of us. One day I smelled food. And I wandered out of my apartment toward the smell. It was stuffed mushrooms. I remember to this day because it's still my favorite. And I landed at this apartment. The door was open. And I stood there like this. And I listened to the sounds of love and joy and family and waited. And all of a sudden, these two old women came out. And as soon as they saw me, they said, "Oh, she's so cute. Come in, come in, come in." And they fed me for hours. I was so happy. And one of those women was Lucy. I remember she had a huge blonde beehive. And she wore a purple housecoat. That's what she called it. And she had to cook in it. And I was fascinated by her. And a couple of months later, we all moved from that building to the new building. And Lucy moved into apartment 23, and my family moved into apartment 25, just down the stairs. And for all intents and purposes, she became my second mother. I would go down there every single day. I would knock on the door. She would feed me, take care of me. She never got paid for it. She just loved me. She saw me through earaches and heartache and first friends. I did have to watch Lawrence Welk and dance in her kitchen with her, but I also got homemade meatballs. We became inseparable. When I was 11 years old, we were going to her family's for Christmas. Yeah, I actually spent Christmas with her. That's how close we were. And we were going to her niece's house. It was Christmas Eve. And I remember it was the coldest night of the year. And we were coming back, and I was yapping about something, I always was, and she was carrying her shopping bags. Her friends affectionately referred to her as the bag lady. She always had shopping bags. And I was saying, "Are you listening? Are you listening?" Of course she wasn't, and I kept talking. And the next thing I know, she sort of rocked against the brick wall. I kept talking. And then she fell really hard back onto the concrete. And I was 11, so I didn't know what was happening. So I said, "Lucy, get up, it's not funny." She didn't move. "Lucy, it's not funny, get up." She didn't move, and I panicked. So I ran back to the house we would just come from, and I banged on the door, and I said, "Lucy, collapse, Lucy, collapse." And everybody came running out, and her two nieces started CPR. One of them was a nurse. And I remember screaming. I just remember looking at her, and she was gone. And a crowd started to form. And for some reason, the firemen weren't coming. They worked on her for a really long time. I think it was like 10 minutes. And at some point, her niece, who was a nurse, looked up at me. She didn't say anything, but I understood the expression to mean, she's dead. She's gone. And all of a sudden, these expletives started flying out of my little 11-year-old body. I was like, "You keep going. You bleepity bleep, keep going. Don't you stop. She's all I have. She's all I have." And somebody was holding me back, and an old lady was crying, and the crowd was getting larger, and I kept screaming, "She's all I have." And suddenly she stunned. And she started CPR again. And it was a couple minutes later, and the ambulance came. And I was hyper-focused. I was listening. And I heard, "We have a faint pulse." I was in Catholic school at the time. It was Christmas break. So I prayed every single minute of every single day. I made bribes to God. I promised everything. I said, "You can't take her yet." And 3 weeks later, she came out of the coma. She was supposed to be my godmother. confirmation. I had to have a proxy, but it was okay. She was there in spirit. And when she recovered, we were inseparable. We were attached at the hip. And when I went off to college, every single year I would come back for Christmas, and her sister, the same one that was there at the apartment, would say, "You're her angel. You're her daughter. You saved her life." And I would laugh, nod, sure. And that happened every year. And then 16 years after that event, I was in New York and I was jogging, nice March day, and I felt chest pain, awful chest pain. I thought I was having a heart attack. So I walked home to my apartment, I told my roommates, I just had a heart attack. Of course, they were like, "You did not have a heart attack." I was like, "No, I did, I had a heart attack." And then 10 minutes later, the phone rang. It was my mother. She said, "She's gone." I didn't ask who. I knew. I didn't ask how. I knew. I waited. And I said again, "She's gone?" And she said, "She's gone." And then the next couple of weeks were just a blur. I didn't know what to do. And I was at the service, and I remember all these old ladies lined up a bag, one at a time, in tribute to her. And that year was the worst year of my life. And I came home, I made it through. It was Christmas, and I saw her sister, that same one at the apartment. And she said, "You were her angel. You saved her life." And I nodded and I laughed. No. The truth is, she saved mine. Thank you.